There's the fastest intro ever. Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Formula, and we're live ahead of qualifying for the Belgian Grand Prix. Last minute lineup shuffle because Terry's coming back from Disney and Tom was able to scoot in at the very last minute. So Tom, welcome and thank you.
Yep, 20 minutes ago I was not expecting to be here, so it's a very last minute parachute in. Let's go. Let's take it to the final hour ahead of the deadline. Exciting stuff. I think lots of questions.
We have so much to talk about. We have engine penalties. Now we're up to Lando Norris, Isaac Hadjar, both of the Aston Martins. Who knows what's going to come out of the Lewis Hamilton debacle at the end of FP3? Maybe we should just start with the timing classifications from FP3 and just crawl through what we learned from the last hour of practice. Kimi Antonelli back at the top of the times very impressively. He was up nearly 0.8 of a second for most of the session before Lando put in a great lap toward the end. Norris in P2, I think, is more of a bad thing than a good thing. I think Lando optimists might think that pace is going to allow him to carve through the field more with his 10-place grid penalty. But I worry that if he qualified that high, he's only going to drop to P12. That's fewer positions gained and overtakes, and he's going to have a tough crawl through the likes of Verstappen, Russell, and the Ferraris if they qualify behind him. So I think this could be a harbinger of maybe a tougher run for Final Fix Norris believers. And then George Russell struggled with his pace the whole session to keep up with Antonelli, but still good enough for P4. That's making me feel pretty optimistic about Mercedes, the likely race winner, and Russell keeping it competitive enough, especially if Lando drops out with his grid penalty. It was Ferrari who had a bit more of a difficult session. Charles Leclerc never quite had the pace. Lewis Hamilton binned it in epic fashion with the last few seconds of the session. And now the race is on to rebuild that car. They said on the broadcast it could take up to 30 minutes to recover a car at a track as long as Spa. And then they'll only have about 2 hours or so to get that rear suspension all back in place and fixed up. So interesting to see if Hamilton will take part in qualifying, which could have big implications for Final Fix or what we use as our second constructor. And then the last thing that stands out to me, double Audi in the top 10 bodes well for them as some great cheap assets this week as we consider bringing in Red Bull. Tom, anything I missed from FP3?
No, I think that's it. I think the last point you just said about the Audis is slightly surprising to me as well, because the Racing Bulls looked supreme, like particularly at the beginning of FP3, like purple sectors. Oh, these Racing Bulls are really tearing it up. But the Audis have come back strong, which is a surprise. So I was looking at some quotes from Hulkenberg ahead of the weekend, and he's saying that it's the type of track, his actual wording is not being our strongest side. Honestly, I think there's a tough weekend ahead of us. That's a quote from Hulkenberg from a couple of days ago. So to see them 8 and 9 in FP3 is, are we being deceived? Is it just one lap pace and then the race pace is going to fall away and the Racing Bulls will just come through? So, and it's actually a decision I have for me is to whether I move Bortoleto to Lawson as like that luxury third transfer or not. So it's a bit, I'm not sure what to do there. But yeah, I think a good point as well about Lando Norris, because I did contemplate McLaren quite a bit. I was in Rob's stream earlier, sort of asking about that. And I think I've moved away from McLaren a little bit. I do think it's quite an exciting prospect to get ahead of the curve on McLaren if they do bring their upgrade package in the next race and suddenly look good and everyone wants to jump on them. Already having a piece of the McLaren pie could be nice. But you make a good point about Norris looking like he's probably going to qualify in the top 3 or 4. Moving back to, he'll start the race like P13 or whatever. Is he going to get through the Ferraris? Probably not. Even the likes of Russell, who's struggling, I think he's never going to get near him either. So he's looking like a P6 maybe, P7. I don't know. It's just not super exciting as if it was like at the back of the grid. So yeah, there's lots of interesting things going on, but ultimately I think my team selection is going to be a little bit boring actually this week. I haven't said all that.
And Tom, a couple of big points that you made there. One is Lando's upside for this race. If he finishes, we'll say only P6, but you have Isaac Hadjar starting at the back of the grid, carving all the way through the midfield. Who's more likely to get driver of the day in that situation? Probably depends on the broadcast direction a bit, but if things are boring everywhere else, I think Isaac could steal that driver of the day from Lando, but that's really the one award that could swing whether you final fix Lando, do you autopilot or 2x Hadjar. I think we need a lot of questions about Isaac's potential, but it's so hinged on the driver of the day too.
The driver of the day is very hard to call here, particularly as we don't know what's going to happen with Hamilton if he doesn't qualify and he's at the back of the grid. He's probably the hottest contender for driver of the day, scything through the field. Hadjar, he's never struck me as the most popular driver. Not that he's particularly unpopular, but I don't know. All the driver of the day winners tend to come from like Ferrari. It's like Ferrari, McLaren, or Verstappen, Antonelli sort of combo. Hadjar, even starting at the back, I still doubt whether he might get driver of the day capability. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one to call. That's why I'm kind of edging towards Antonelli as my 2 times this week. Just keep it clean out front, get the fastest lap, and kind of be done with it.
That's a great segue into the post FP3 sims. You're going to see me refresh and react to this in real time because I'm seeing you all say in the chat that riders post FP3 sims are up. Here they are. A bit of an adjustment from what we saw after FP2. Hadjar was originally scored above Antonelli. Now he's dropped in just a little bit below that, followed by Norris, Verstappen, and Russell. And then when we move down to the constructors here, looks like the gap between Red Bull and Ferrari is a little bit tighter. This was 20 points earlier this morning. Now we're looking at about 15 and a half. So some minor adjustments here. I don't think anything too crazy has changed. You can see what it's suggesting for me, a pivot to Red Bull and Antonelli with Hulkenberg for my team 1. So that's where the sims are leading now. As we come down a bit, is there anything else that really stands out? No, nothing too crazy. The things I want to look at here with Hadjar, so in the last sim, he was expected for 20 overtakes. Now it's 18. Remember, the record all time in F1 Fantasy is Verstappen in Miami with 20. So I caution taking too much stock in this number. It feels ambitious. And I appreciate that you can gain a bunch of positions and then drop back down and then pick them back up again. But 18 is a very, very beastly week for Isaac if he can pull it off. And even with all that, like Tom said, he's still looking to finish 4 points below Antonelli on average.
Just looking at Hadjar, he's also got a 23.8% driver of the day odd, which I just put his odds down a minute ago when I was talking about it, but I'm curious as to who. Yeah, so Antonelli's sat just above him, 24%.
That's a big shift because Hadjar was up by 35% after FP2. I wonder what they're seeing there.
Norris down to 18. Yeah, it's curious. Hadjar's got quite high, just behind Antonelli on the driver of the day odds there. So, yeah, I'd anticipate Hadjar not being quite that hard. I'd anticipate him getting like high 20s, maybe touching 30 points if everything goes according to plan. Yeah, it's an interesting one. And my suggested best teams for my team are, funny enough, literally the 2 teams I've been juggling around for the last sort of hour. So that's pretty satisfying when the FP3 sims come out and it's like, oh, the sims are supporting what you're thinking. So that's great. So yeah, pretty happy with that.
Nothing induces more panic than when it says, actually, you should bring an Audi as your second constructor and run 3 premium drivers or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a lot to catch up on in the chat. We have a new member, F1 Chestnutter. Welcome to the group. I think the new members are starting to test what I'm willing to say on air, but welcome to the group and thank you for supporting the channel. Got a lot of our friends queued up in the chat. Mike's here, Race Maven. Gezelik likes the jersey. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gezelik. This is from Furious Motorsport, an American company that makes F1 themed jerseys. That I have a bunch of their Hamilton stuff. I'm trying to will Hamilton into Q1 in a little bit, so I wanted to get the good vibes rolling. All right, Tom, let's knock out some questions from the chat.
Yep.
Maxter says, if I go for Red Bull Constructor this week, are they going to be good for next week too?
No.
Hungary is more twisting, and I feel like it does favor Ferrari. And so
yeah. I
agree. If you go with Red Bull, I would succumb to probably switching back to Ferrari next week. And,
yeah,
and you have, I think McLaren bringing upgrades too. It seems like Red Bull could shuffle down to as low as 4th next week.
Yeah, it does feel like a bit of a one week wonder for Red Bull, but the fact is they do look very strong. We've got the Hadjar penalty. Verstappen looks good for a podium. The Ferraris are just a little bit behind. We've got the Hamilton issue. McLaren, Norris is out the picture for the podium unless something really weird happens. So yeah, Red Bull just look extremely strong here this week. So I think it's a great opportunity to pounce on their points and move off them. It does also The deliberation for my team is whether I use that third free transfer, move in Bortoletto to Liam Lawson for reliability reasons. But I'm also kind of tempted just to keep Bortoletto and run, as much as not particularly keen on it, double Audi with Hulkenberg and Bortoletto, just so I've got that third transfer to roll over in the case I need to move off Red Bull, as well as a couple of budget drivers that, because their price potential fluctuates so much, it's important to keep those transfers open. So yeah, moving to Red Bull, it's going to tie me up slightly going into Hungary, probably, because I can see myself moving off them straight away. But yeah, it's an interesting position. But I think they're good to bring in this week.
In the latest betting lines support this move to Red Bull. You can see Verstappen pretty clear in P2 right now. Antonelli well out in front in P1. It's recognizing that George is a fair bit behind his teammate. Lewis is going to be on a mostly rebuilt car. Charles just isn't feeling it this week. Lando's dropping all the way back. So good news for Red Bull supporters that Max should be in contention for the front row. Isaac could be starting
surprisingly high.
Surprisingly high to win. P22 up to what is that? P8? You want to see that?
I mean, those odds are to win. Like, is he really still ahead of like Lawson and Co to win? I don't know. It seems a bit extreme. What's more likely, Hadjar winning from the back or Lawson winning from like P8? They're both kind of never going to happen, are they? But
that would be an all-time fantasy moment if it were to happen. All right. What else we have? Oh, yeah, Gesling, great point. Let's hit the like button. Let Tom know you're glad to see him back. 2 races in a row. I'm so glad you were able to make it because we have a lot of questions for just a solo podcaster to handle. So grateful for you.
That's okay. I was super chill, relaxed. I was on a couple of streams just checking out what's going on, and I got the emergency call. I was like, okay, coming on.
Time to get the blood pressure up. So M wants to know, the only way I can get from Red Bull to Ferrari is to drop Lawson to something like Alonso or Bottas, as I already have Hulkenberg. Is this too risky? That is quite risky. Alonso, you heard, if you saw my final thoughts video last night, Alonso said his goal for the weekend is to get home early to watch Spain tomorrow. So that is not a great sign. And he's taking a pretty big grid penalty. So it could be an FP4 sort of situation in the Grand Prix tomorrow if they don't like what they see.
I think, I'm not sure exactly where he's going to start with the grid penalties and everything. I'm not sure how it's going to work with, like, I guess Hadjar, I don't know, does Hadjar start behind Alonso?
The way it stands now, Hadjar's penalty is 30 places. So you would need something outrageous where Hadjar stamps it on pole, he drops to 31, Alonso starts 22nd, gets a 10-place penalty and starts, 32nd in that case. I think there's only an extreme example where Hadjar's not last.
So it's likely that Alonso is probably going to lose, even if he qualifies like P21 or whatever, he's still going to lose a position straight off the bat, isn't he, probably?
I think the big thing is it depends on your transfer situation and where you want to set yourself up for next week. Like we mentioned a moment ago, you're going to have to pivot back to Red Bull and Ferrari. You're not going to run Alonso or Bottas more weeks than you absolutely have to. So if it's a 1-week punt and you have maybe a third free transfer that you can carry into next week to undo some of that, that's fine. I think you're starting to get to a little too much messing around if you have to do all of that. They're close enough where I think you'd be okay. Blake, your question's -10 for Red Bull over Ferrari. That's what I'm staring at right now and leaning toward yes.
Yeah, not often I advocate for -10s. I very rarely take them myself. I don't need to. Thankfully for myself, I'm in a bit of a more luxurious position with the extra transfer. But if I hadn't, then I would probably also be looking at -10. I think Red Bull are that good that this weekend. Not to say Ferrari look particularly bad or anything. I think they've looked fairly decent as the weekend's gone on. Obviously, Hamilton crash throws a few spanners in the work, quite literally. But I think the -10 could well pay off this week for Red Bull.
Well, Rebecca's got a very pertinent question for my lineup situation. To go to Red Bull, I need to go Bortoletto to Hulkenberg, keeping 2 times V-carb, or keep Bortoletto and go Lawson to, I think that's maybe Bottas, or Lawson to or I don't know what the second half of that is, Rebecca. Let me know what your Lawson 2 situation is. Maybe Valtteri, because you already have Bortoletto. Which one would you do? I have 3 free transfers for Hungary either way. I'll tell you, you're looking at a better situation than me because I need to get to Red Bull. I'll have to go Bortoletto to Hulkenberg and take a -10. but I'm still thinking about doing it. I'm leaning toward it. So for you with 3 free transfers and no -10, I'd probably say Bortoletto to Hulkenberg, no -10, roll the transfer. You'd be in good shape.
We've got a question here from Race Maven asking about the Ferrari Red Bull constructor lineup. So skipping off Mercedes entirely. Have you put any thought into dropping Mercedes? I personally had, and then scrapped that idea when I saw Russell was, good enough for P4. Looks fine. Antonelli probably going to win. For me personally, I think Mercedes is strong enough just to hold. But I don't know have you had any thoughts on Adam?
Completely agree. Yeah, because it's all the other things too. Mercedes are going to put both drivers into Q3. They're most likely to get the fastest lap. They're most likely to get the pit stop points. They lead the grid in the pit stop point category this year. So all these reasons where they say on the broadcast, Russell looks so lost. He looks so behind. It's because he's a second off of Kimi, who's ultra quick. It's not that he's going to be super, super slow in the race tomorrow. Mercedes have the fastest race pace according to F1 sims on this. And with Lando out of the way, Russell could still contend for a podium. So the extra money's worth it.
He brought it back to about 3/10 or something, didn't he, towards the end of FP3? So if he's 3-4 tenths off, that's probably still good for the top 5 quite comfortably. So yeah.
All right, let's jump over and do a couple of our member lineups. This one's from Zach Taylor, and I think Zach submitted this last night before Red Bull became a little more in vogue than they were yesterday. Antonelli, Hadjar, double Racing Bulls, Hulkenberg, Ferrari, Mercedes. I think that's totally fine depending on your transfer situation. I don't know if you have any leftover money in tow to get Ferrari up to Red Bull. You could bring Lawson. I think a lot of people are bringing Lawson down to a Bortoletto, to a Ford Red Bull here. I think that's a fine alternative.
I'm trying to go in the opposite direction. Trying to skip off the Audis, but no. Yeah, that team does look a little bit like a last week jobby to me. I think Red Bull need a bit more coverage in there. Verstappen looking good.
And then these other two teams, obviously, they were submitted before Lewis binned it in FP3. I'm not sure I trust Lewis with the 2X because he's either going to start qualifying and probably be on the back foot a little bit, opening the door for Verstappen to be that P2 driver, or he starts at the back of the grid. And it could be really good, but you're taking a -5 for not participating in qualifying today.
On that, I've just seen Rob has reposted something from Formula Race's Twitter account. Ferrari are in a race against time to get Hamilton's car ready. They're changing the floor, rear wing, and suspension and gearbox as a precaution. A whole load of stuff going on in Hamilton's car by the sounds of it.
Wow. And that could get Hamilton a step closer to a potential grid penalty.
Yeah, I do wonder.
And then this last team here is a double tier A driver. I think this is like cost cap builder because you've got three high cost cap building B tier drivers and V Carb, who's likely to go 0.6 million. So I think that's just a differential strategy in case things go sideways with Red Bull. If you've got 3 teams, I've got to get Red Bull into one of them. So probably this one here, figuring out a way down from Lawson to get to the Red Bull constructor. Here's Rick. Rick has done a lot of good work with adding some detail of his 3 lineups. Now, Rick is always a bit of a mad scientist with some of his teams. He's the kind of guy that would keep Lewis in, hoping that he doesn't make it to qualifying and that he has a master class at the Grand Prix tomorrow. This is he's got 2 big budget teams, one on either side of 120 million. So I suspect with this one, he's trying to push the limits with the budget and then just really dive bomb the second half of the year with a bigger cost cap. So I'm okay with team 3 and the approach you're taking there. Team 1, I'm pro Antonelli with a -10 because I think the risk profile will be a little safer with the clear-cut P1 driver of the day, should take pole. I don't trust the range of outcomes with Hamilton. He could have a hard time tomorrow if Ferrari can't fix him up to be just right. Middle team. I think the middle team is okay. Now it depends on if you want to hedge your bets of Hamilton coming up through the grid tomorrow and try something crazy. If this is a team where you're trying to protect a lead or you're trying to get as many points as possible, I'd cycle Mercedes back into here, bring this back to a tier B driver, like a Lawson, or if you can't afford him, a Hulkenberg. I I think there's some more member lineups kicking around. There we go. Here's Race Maven. Lower budget here, double Audi with Antonelli, Hadjar, and Lindblad. Lindblad getting that updated airbox for V-Carb, so could be worth keeping an eye on this week. Will that upgrade work? I think this team is fine. It's hard to reach Red Bull when you have lower budget teams, so I can see why she might not have it on all three of her lineups.
Yeah, at least a little bit of coverage there of Hadjar and a couple of teams. I think it's Hadjar is just like an absolute must, really, isn't he? This week.
Agreed. And I think even on this team 3, if you're taking a punt, maybe Hamilton, Hadjar with an autopilot. We haven't talked about autopilot much, but if you really believe in Hadjar, I think a miracle could happen. You slap the autopilot on and at least moves to the highest scoring driver. Then you drop Ferrari down to a V-Carb and you're trying to stack budget and make a run for it.
Yeah, I'm personally quite liberal with my use of autopilot. I think it's a bit of a rubbish chip, and it's kind of just mostly luck if you get some benefit from it. So yeah, I'd be happy for people to use autopilot this week, particularly if the sim supporting Hadjar scoring so well. If you want to run Hadjar versus Antonelli autopilot, I can see people going down that way, and seems fine to me.
In my 4 years of using the autopilot chip, I've had one miracle, which was I ran Norris and Piastri last year, where one of them DNF'd and the other one won the race, and it moved.
That's
and then
Zandvoort,
3 years where autopilot did nothing.
I think that was Zandvoort. Was it Zandvoort? Because I think I remember running McLaren boys in that race, and I think Norris broke down or something, and I had Norris. Didn't run the autopilot, got punished.
It usually does nothing for me.
Yeah.
All right, the last one is F1 Chestnut are making good use of their new membership in the top 1K in the global league, but lost over 400 places last week. So a little bit nervous on the move, leaning toward the first lineup because it allows them to carry 3 transfers into the next race. Questioning if it's the best play. Lawson over Colapinto. What should work here? I would probably rule out this team. How do you do this team 3 with Antonelli and Lando and 4? Can you do a 4-tier A with double $3 million drivers? Ooh, that'd be tempting. But then you lose out on the Hadjar points. I think Hadjar could actually outscore Norris.
Yeah.
And you downgrade out the tier B.
I haven't even really considered the proper 4A this week because of Hadjar. It's like you don't really need to look any further this week. Just get that easy budget, easy points, and then maybe look at 4A next week.
So let's rule out team 3 here. And now we're down to rolling the transfer versus the upside of Red Bull. And then I think there's the question too of Lawson versus Colapinto. I think I like Lawson over Colapinto with the transfer. If it's a straight, I have one transfer and I have to pick between the two of them. I think Franco has the better chance of gaining value in any scenario this week. But I like Liam with the transfer. So now it's just down to Gabby and Ferrari or Hulkenberg and Red Bull. I would go for it. I'd go for the middle team.
Yeah, that middle team is more or less what I am looking at. The only difference is that Lawson slot. Do I just hold Bortolesso and run that, carry over that third transfer, or do I make that third transfer and bring Lawson in for reliability concerns over the Audi? That's kind of where I'm at the moment, in case people are interested.
And Tom and I are both in the top 1,000 too, so we're playing with some big decisions ourselves. All right. Let's jump back. We'll have the team calculator on the screen. Oh, Race Maven has gone full Oprah again. 5 memberships are going out to 5 random listeners. So make sure you hit that like button to thank Race Maven or say thank you to her in the chat. Ooh. Antonelli 3X, Hadjar 2X, or autopilot. So I've answered this a few times. I think it depends on your budget. If you have a very low budget and you can't possibly reach a 4A lineup by Singapore, which is the last sprint weekend where you could get the most out of the 3X chip, this could be your last best time to use the 3X boost, but that's a very niche example. But I suspect if you can afford Antonelli and Hadjar, you probably could afford to wait.
Yep, I like that line of thinking, putting it down to kind of budget. Obviously, I haven't considered 3 times myself because I've already used it, whatever. And, you don't normally use it on a non-sprint weekend. But with Hadjar, with this big points potential, there is an argument, like you say, with the lower budget teams, but I would still probably be looking for a sprint race. But stranger things have happened. Big score could be on for both Antonelli and Agile this week.
So I pick autopilot between those two. Oh, right.
There's quite a lot of activity going on in the chat now. I feel like we probably missed some questions.
Lots of love for Race Maven, which is great. Ooh, Andrew's in the chat. Hi, Andrew. Pretty tough weekend with Red Bull versus Ferrari. Andrew, I want to know what you're picking, because you usually do the long division to let us to figure out the best picks. You've been spot on lately. You think going with Ferrari and Bortoleto or Red Bull and Hulk is the call? That is both of our calls right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty certain I'm moving away from Ferrari for at least this week. Unfortunately, kind of sticking with Hulkenberg in my team because he's just, he can't lose budget. It's a bit of a pain that he DNF'd last week, so he's not going to get any price game. Well, I say that. I don't think it's like, if I remember correctly, let me have a quick look at the budget builder. I don't think it's completely out of the question. Where is he? 11 points. He needs 11 points for a price gain. It's not, completely crazy to think Hulkenberg can't get 11 points. Or not very likely, but so yeah, maybe I just keep Hulkenberg in there. But yeah, I do think Red Bull over Ferrari for me.
Agreed. And I have that decision with a -10, and I'm still leaning that way. So we're pro Red Bull and Hulk in that situation. Sri wants to know chip suggestions, and I've got the weather queued up just to show you why I'm ruling out no negative. It looks like there's maybe a chance of showers in the morning, but then a bone dry afternoon. And certainly with the microclimate at Spa, you could have some showers that affect small parts of the circuit, but I don't think this is going to be your typical wet weather Spa like we had last year, where the race start was delayed and we had a little bit of chaos on Saturday. So then chips I would use, I'd say probably autopilot is up there. Final fix, depending on what happens with Hamilton, is up there. Those are probably the only two I'd really, really take a long look at.
Yeah, I mean, Final Fix does, there is that appeal with Hamilton to start at the back, but at the same time, I imagine most of us are probably running Antonelli. Would you really want to move off Antonelli, who's probably going to win the race, probably going to get fastest lap, just to bring in Hamilton for the overtakes? Nah, I'm not sure it's entirely worth it. I mean, I can see the appeal, but I'm not sure it's super worth it when you think about it a bit more.
Everybody wants to see lineups. I've got to give it 10 more minutes just to see what we hear about Hamilton, just to make sure there's nothing that makes me want to hold on to Lewis as my 2X driver or hold on to Ferrari. Tom is probably the most deliberate and patient of all of us, so he'll probably be the last one to put his lineup out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone in chat has any opinion on my lineup. Like I said, I think I'm pretty much like nailed on with what I'm going for. Like I've already alluded to earlier on the stream, I am looking to move Hamilton off Antonelli and then Ferrari to Red Bull. The only real decision I have after that is whether I take that third transfer to change Bortoleto into Lawson, just because I have some concerns over the Audi reliability. So I was wondering how people feel about burning off that third transfer for that move. It's not exciting, and with the fact that you might need to move off Red Bull in the next race, maybe I should keep that third transfer open and just hope Bortoleto gets through the race. It's a tough call. It is a bit of a luxury transfer to make that move, and it could hurt me going into the next race. So I don't know if I should just leave it, but then that means if I leave it, I'm running Bortoleto and Hulkenberg, double jeopardy there with the Audi. So yeah, I just wonder if anyone's got any opinion on that to help me make my decision.
Well, in the meantime, Terry's posted his lineup, and he has weighed in on double Audi. He's in.
There we go.
So had to make the move to Red Bull. Terry is typically pro Red Bull and leans more toward them than the rest of us usually do. So this wasn't a surprise to me. He's doing it at the expense of having double Audi. So he's at least going to believe this week in that Audi reliability and what we saw in free practice 3, where they were both in the top 10. Isaac obviously has set and forget, and that you can double dip on him with the constructor. So that's where Terry's at, and let's put him bone dry at 0 remaining budget. So Terry just taking the full extremes of his cost cap to get to this team.
He's used all 3 transfers as well. It's very small on my screen, but does that say 0 out 3?
Yes, he's used all 3. So this also addresses your other question of, do I burn a third transfer? It looks like Terry would say no in your case, because you'd be making the move out of right? You'd be moving out of Lawson or into Lawson?
Into Lawson, yeah.
Mm.
I wonder if he's done that just because of budget reasons. He had to cut off. I don't know exactly what his team was before. Has he dropped Lawson into like a Bortoletto or something so he can squeeze this team in? Whereas I
think he did.
Kind of have that, like I say, it's a bit of a luxury move choice.
Well, Terry's cheeky too. He shows his team 1 here, which is the one we talk about on our show and through the stream. But his team 3 is the one that's competing with yours and mine in the top 500. And I wonder what he's put on that. Usually, he waits till I've locked my lineup and says, "Hey, look at the sneaky thing that I've put up in my good team." All right, more questions in the chat. I see Race Maven is up to more shenanigans with giving out the members. Thank you so much, Race Maven. We're gonna have a real party in here. All right. Antonio wants to know, which one do you prefer? Antonelli, Hadjar, Lawson, Lindblad, Bortoletto, Ferrari, Mercedes versus Antonelli, Hadjar, Lawson, Lindblad, Hulkenberg, Mercedes, Red Bull. So this is Hulkenberg, Bortoletto, Ferrari, Mercedes. Oh yeah, Hulkenberg, Red Bull all day. Let's do it. All right, Mex's lineup is in. Let's check. There it is. All right, Mex's mixing it up with a second A constructor in teams 1 and 3. Should I switch them for something else? Team 2 is the one that got hit with 3 DNFs in Australia. Oh man, Australia really set you off on a good or a bad path depending on how your team looks. So I get the struggles of your team 2. Team 1 looks perfectly fine. I think for that budget.
Yeah, that team 1 is what I'm running for my team 3, which has a similar budget, because it's just too hard to stretch to a Hadjar. But I think that's the next best thing, which is what I'm running team 3 for. It's team 3, it might be team 2 actually, but either way.
And then with the team 3, I see the point here, right? Because I think it's hoping that McLaren outshines Ferrari. The rest of the team is what you can do with that budget. Let's come over to the team calculator and just double check. Yeah, McLaren and Ferrari, not a whole lot between them. So I think this is a no wrong answer sort of thing between Ferrari and McLaren. I think it will be a matter of, do you believe that Hamilton will start at the back of the grid? If you do, I'd probably slot Ferrari in here because there'll be some overtakes in it for you. If you think they limp him out halfway through Q1 and he qualifies maybe a little bit farther behind where you thought he would have pre-crash, then I'd stick with McLaren. Go for the Lando overtakes.
Question in the chat about Hamilton's car. Last I've heard is they're changing a whole host of things, and it's a race against time to get Hamilton ready for qualifying. So keep your eyes peeled for news on that in the last half an hour.
Yes, that addresses your question, Sergio, that Hamilton, I don't think I totally trust Hamilton as a driver. Looking at your team 2, I think Mexis is trying something crazy because this is a team that's been just riddled with bad luck. In my heart of hearts, I'd probably move this to Antonelli if you want the safest team. But when you run 3 lineups, typically one of them you want to take some punts and see if Antonelli has another car issue like you had at Silverstone. If Lando can't get all the way back up the grid, then maybe Lewis does something magical from the back of the grid that outscores everyone else. Kafla wants to see the betting lines again. Here you go. Now, forgive me, these are American betting lines, but you can just, the way you could assume them here is P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And the bigger the gap between these numbers, the more cemented the betting lines say these drivers are in their position. So Antonelli well and truly out in front here. Verstappen ahead of Russell. And then who knows where Hamilton will sit after qualifying. So it looks like these top 3 are pretty safe. And then good news, like Tom mentioned earlier, for Isaac coming through the back, and they still project him in the top 8 or so.
All right, we've got 25 minutes left.
I have my lineup set, but not totally locked, in a post that is scheduled to go live in 5 minutes.
Oh.
So if you haven't gotten those likes in yet, please do. Let's take it to the moon today. That'll be a great time to make sure this team is actually saved before I totally get ahead of myself. It is. Okay, good.
I'll give it mine another 5-10 minutes before I lock anything in. But yeah, pretty close to a decision. Like I said, that final decision on Bortoletto to Lawson currently thinking might just hold Bortoleto and pray the Audis finish, but I think I might need that third transfer to come out the other end. But I may regret that when you see the Bortoleto, please retire the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, no, don't do it to me.
Geslig wants to know, is it worth a -10 to go from Ferrari to Red Bull? Before the FP3 crash from Hamilton, I would have said 100% Red Bull. Now it's a matter of, do you think Hamilton will start at the back and make up enough overtakes to sort of cross out what Isaac does? Usually repairs of this magnitude, they can get them out at some point in Q1. And so I think it's more likely that Hamilton will start closer to his usual position. So I'm still leaning Red Bull and worth the -10. Lannister wants to know, Lawson Ferrari versus Hulkenberg Red Bull. This is Tom territory.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. I mean, I think if you need to run Hulkenberg to get, wait, what were the options again? Say again.
It was Lawson and Ferrari versus Hulkenberg and Red Bull.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hulkenberg might be a necessary evil to run this week, because I think Red Bull are pretty clear favourites over Ferrari this weekend. Obviously, a bit of a question mark over what the hell's going on with Hamilton, but I think in general, I will be running Hulkenberg this week. I will be running Hulkenberg and Red Bull. So I guess that kind of answers your question as to what I think about it. But
the price floor makes him so attractive. I mean, even when he DNF'd at Silverstone, you could say, well, at least I'm not screwed on the budget. He's no worse off than how he started. Ooh, is it worth it to go Bortoleto to Lawson for a -10? No.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally the move I'm looking at, and I've got it for free, and I'm already like thinking I don't want to do it for free because I want to run that extra transfer. So I don't know if I'm just very stingy with my transfers, but maybe I should just go for it. And I probably, Audi do have a worse reliability record this season. Can't deny that. So should I just use that transfer to just scrap him off and bring in Lawson, much more reliable car, top 10 contender? Maybe it's worth it, and then just deal with it going into Hungary if I take a -10, or maybe I even use a wild card. I don't know if Hungary is a complete shake-up, but yeah, it's a tough call, really tough call. But I wouldn't be taking -10s to move around my B tier drivers.
No, because there's not 10 points between them this week, and then Murphy's Law says whichever one you pick could DNF, and now all of a sudden you're out 30 points because you got the transfer penalty and a DNF penalty. So I would just stick with the one that you started the week with.
I see Rob's just posted his team, and he's posted the team which I'm currently moving towards. He's also got the Bortoleto, and he's gone Bortoleto instead of Lawson, but I think that's because he can't actually afford to go up to Lawson by looks of it. So I don't know if he would have gone Lawson if he could have done. But he's actually moved Lawson out for Bortoleto to enable the Red Bull move, which is fair enough. Like I said, I could be ended up on the exact same team. It's just whether I want to use that for transfer.
It's going to be an exciting next few minutes here. What else do we have? Lots of good questions all the way around. Should I swap Mercedes for Red Bull so I can afford Bortoleto to Lawson? Oh, that feels like a little too much to make it work. Mercedes, I think there's so much in hand for Mercedes already. The top driver, the most likely fastest lap, pretty solid floor for pit stop points. I would try to, if you can get into Red Bull over Ferrari, do it. If not, I think I would stick with your team from Silverstone.
I see the latest chat's come through. Pop Man, what are your 2 cents on McLaren or Red Bull? I did sort of briefly discuss this earlier. Red Bull is the short answer. There's several reasons why, really, which I think Adam kind of spoke about earlier. But if you want the short answer with time running out, Red Bull over McLaren for me this week.
And I think quite possibly this is going to flip next week with McLaren bringing upgrades, Isaac not starting from the back, and you could have a flip here. But
I think if you're going McLaren, you're definitely making that kind of educated gamble, if that's a thing, on McLaren being very strong in Hungary, and that sort of saves your transfer. You're ahead of the curve. I can see the thinking behind that. Me personally, I think the upside on Red Bull this week is strong enough. I've got 3 transfers, so I'm kind of in a good position already. I don't mind making that move. But I can see why people are interested in McLaren. I think it's just not quite enough for me to make that move myself. I think Piastri being a little bit off, Norris starting in the meat grinder of the midfield, bit of a risky position. Is he going to make up enough positions? Yeah, it's just a little bit, just enough to put me off McLaren this week, but I think they might be good in the next race.
Race Maven, you were looking for Terry's lineup. It's right here. He's got double Audi and then pretty much everything else you'd expect. Did my lineup post? It did. All right, let's rock and roll. Here it is. I've gone for the -10. I hate myself for taking a -10, but it had to happen. Antonelli and Hadjar. So for me, I had Hamilton in the 2X spot last week, so I needed first transfer on Antonelli. Then I can't afford Red Bull unless I go from Bortoletto to Hulkenberg. That's transfer number 2. And then Ferrari to Red Bull is transfer number 3 in the -10. I think it's going to be worth it. Hopefully Hamilton doesn't start at the back of the grid and prove me wrong. But just tons of points everywhere with Antonelli, Hadjar, Mercedes, and Red Bull. So I feel good about making up that -10. So I'll leave that up for a minute. See if anyone wants to throw tomatoes at it or praise it or anything in between.
It's very close to what I'm looking at. Obviously, it's the same team. It's just that, again, that Lawson Bortoletto debate. So I won't bore people anymore with that. That's what I'm thinking about in that regard. I need to make a decision in the next few minutes. But yeah, loving the look of the team. It's a shame you have to take the -10, but I think it's probably worth it this week.
Ooh, that's Lucas's team too. All right, good luck. Good luck to both of us, Lucas. A lot of questions about me not using the autopilot this week. For me, I think I have a chance with my cost cap, which is right now at 120.7 million, where I can afford 2 premium drivers for a longer part of the season, and there'll be a more obvious time for me to use autopilot. But like Tom said earlier, it is mostly a crapshoot. So I have no problem at all with using autopilot on a team like this, in case Hadjar outscores Antonelli. I just have an inkling that I'll have a more obvious chance to use it later. If someone closes the gap to Kimi, or it's a track that Kimi's struggling at in practice, or he's on the back foot for one reason or another. So I haven't used it here, but don't blame me at all if you were to use it.
Okie dokie. Just over 15 minutes to go. This is about the time I normally start locking in my transfers, and then the last minute decision on Lawson.
I'll give you some peace for a minute or two, Tom, while you finalize that. Save autopilot for a bad weather race. That's another time you could use it. Yeah, Will. You could wait for a rainy weekend that maybe you've already burnt no negative, and you're just not sure if someone has the right tire strategy that maybe shoots them up the grid. That could totally happen too. Simon wants to know Mercedes and Red Bull with a -10 versus Red Bull, Ferrari versus Mercedes and Ferrari. Well, if I do say so myself, I prefer Mercedes, Red Bull with a -10 because that's what I did. I would probably rank them Mercedes and Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Ferrari. In that order.
Okay, well, I've made a couple of transfers. I'm still holding off on that final decision regarding the Lawson Bortoletto, but I have for people interested, I have moved Lewis back to Kimi and then Ferrari to Red Bull. Just need to make my mind up over the next few minutes what I'm doing with Bortoletto. Hold him, save that transfer, or move him to Lawson.
Stocksy, why are we going for Red Bull? 2 reasons. Number 1, you've got Max at the top of the grid, and I think he could be a pretty strong shout for a podium. And then Isaac Hadjar starting at the back of the grid. 30-place grid penalty means he's going to be carving through the likes of Aston Martin, Cadillac, Williams, Haas. So overtakes and position gained all over the place for him. Austin versus Colapinto. Who are you picking? If you don't have to make a transfer, maybe Colapinto. It's slightly easier for him to gain 0.6 million. Very slightly more reliable car, even though things have been looking really good for V-Carb lately. But that's a no wrong answers sort of question for me.
Bortoletto only needs 3 points for that max price rise. Lawson needs 6. Is a small factor in proceedings here for me. Sorry if I'm boring people with this minute decision, but yeah.
And then then we'll have to see how their Silverstone score impacts their budget thresholds for next time, because Lawson's going to kick his 7-point score and he'll be on a 22 and whatever he gets this week.
Yeah. Bortoletto does make it a bit more flexible in terms of budget because he's about 3 million or so cheaper. So it's quite nice. It's just running double Audi. They just have a knack of just looking good, and then like 10 laps to go, they're just, oh, car stopped. It's frustrating to own them. So that's why I'm tempted to just go Lawson.
It's fascinating though. Bortoleto, we talk about Audi's reliability issues. They tend to hit Hulk more. Bortoleto's last DNF was China. He's been
true.
He had a disqualification somewhere in the middle there.
To be fair, Hulkenberg was
cracked out.
Hulkenberg was unlucky in Spain as well with the whole Lawson pinging gravel up into his kill switch. What the odds on that? But yeah, so but then Hulkenberg and Silverstone again. I can't remember what the exact outcome was as to why he crashed out, or didn't crash out, pulled over on that one. But the fact is he did. So, but yeah, you're right. Maybe it's worth just holding it, keeping that third transfer, having an extra 3 million in the bank, moving into next week. Slightly easier to get the 0.6 gain. Maybe I just hold that transfer and just run double Audi for another week, as much as it kind of pains me.
Report in the chat that F1 is saying Hamilton's car is ready, which tells me no need to consider Hamilton as the 2X. Absolutely now Red Bull over Ferrari. So all good there. Red Bull and Alonso versus Ferrari and Colapinto. Now you're testing my limits. I guess Red Bull and Alonso, but I don't love that at all.
Yeah, that's a really tough one.
I don't love that one bit.
Alonso in the mix. I think he's all right for a price gain. I think he needs 3 points for a max price gain, but it's Alonso and an Aston Martin that's like 4 seconds behind everyone.
Now, keep in mind, if you're running Alonso because you already have Hulk, we got multiple price floor drivers, it's not the end of the world if you run Hadjar or Red Bull. If you have a low enough budget team and you're trying to do crazy things to afford both of them, maybe it's not in the cards for some teams. So that's fine too.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but Aston Martin's upgrades come in the next race. They come into Budapest, aren't they?
They should. Now, I saw a quote this week that says they're coming in Hungary, but we're not going to have a lot of spare parts. So they'd have to be very clean and then nail it right away.
So maybe you could gamble on that Alonso build running Red Bull and hope he gets through. He might just, if he gets 3 points, he gets a max price rise, and then they've got an upgraded car going into next race. Maybe Alonso is actually fine. I still don't like it, but if you want to talk yourself into it, that's not the end of the world.
AJ Campbell, one of our newest members, says Kimi at a -10 or Hamilton. I've done Kimi at a -10. And to Sahil's question of if his car's ready, why wouldn't you consider him as the 2X? I suspect this heavily rebuilt car isn't the exact unit that Hamilton took around the track in free practice. So I imagine at best he's going to get back to where he was previously, which is, how did he end? Somewhere around here, this P4, P5. At worst, he could drop down a little bit behind, say, Charles Leclerc as he tries to get up to terms with his new car. Compared to the likes of an Antonelli, who should run away with it, compared to Lando Norris, who's coming up from the back from the upper midfield, I think Lewis wouldn't be the top 2X boost for me. Tom, the chat wants to know if you've locked in your team yet.
No, I'm just stewing over this Lawson move. I'm trying to work out how likely it is I'm going to need the third transfer next week. Because I'm probably keeping Kimi unless something really crazy happens going in next week. So I don't want to change him. Hadjar is probably not going to go anywhere unless I could potentially want to move into a 4A kind of lineup from next week. So there's potential I want that third transfer because Red Bull might be on their way out. So I could be looking at moving Red Bull out back to Ferrari, Hadjar up to like a Leclerc or something, and I need to shuffle around a budget guy. Probably
on a low overtake track, a 4A lineup could be mighty if you can.
Yeah, so maybe I do need that flexibility of the extra transfer.
Sergio, latest news on Lewis is that he's ready. No issues with the car. Lindblad or Bortoleto? Lindblad. Loving V car. Something like 4 or 5 straight double top 10 finishes. So that car is definitely the P5 car here. Oh, here's a spanner. Andrew's come back and said he's gone with Ferrari. I think that's a matter of moving around. He says it's a matter of moving around his budget drivers and making too much work there. So that could be something.
Yeah, I don't think Ferrari are a bad choice, particularly as Hamilton. It looks okay to qualify. He's not going to get any minus points for that. Ferrari, like I say, I've been quietly impressed with them this week. I think they'll be good going next week. So holding them, it's fine. It's fine. I'm on board the Red Bull hype train this week, but I think Ferrari are kind of should be okay.
I miss a debate in the chat that I want to weigh in on: hot coffee versus iced coffee. Now, I'll drink a hot coffee anytime, but I'm 12 months out of the year happy with iced coffee. In the cold winter months here in Massachusetts, I drink iced coffee too.
Big no from me. I like my coffee nice and warm.
We're a house divided. I think Terry's more of a hot coffee guy too. Antonelli, Hadjar, Lindblad, Behrman, Bottas, Red Bull, Mercedes. We haven't talked about Behrman. His price gain target's not too bad this week. He can go up with 6 points, 0.2 million. So I like Ollie as a hold because it's going to be a much lower target once that one's kicked off his score. So I don't hate that. If I was going with a $3 million driver, though, I'd probably say Hulkenberg over Valtteri there. Hadjar and Ferrari or Lawson and Red Bull. Oh, Hadjar and Ferrari. Yeah, the gap between Red Bull and Ferrari isn't so big. We'll call it 15, maybe 20 points at most, versus Hadjar could collect 35, 40 points, whereas Lawson will never sniff that much.
Yeah. I'm not happy. I'm not very happy.
I can see the gears turning.
I mean, I'm fine. I think either way it's fine. Having Bortoletto or Lawson, both are kind of fine. And I think because it's close, I think Bortoletto needs just a teeny smidge less in the way of points to get that maximum price rise.
Another question about no negative this weekend.
Gonna run it.
There's never a bad weekend for no negative. If you played it, I can't blame you. We have multiple retirements every single week and then top drivers that have random problems like Antonelli at Silverstone, but I'm probably going to hold it, keeping my fingers and toes crossed that either Zandvoort or Singapore are wet sprint weekends. Lawson and Ferrari versus Bortoletto and Red Bull. Bortoletto and Red Bull. Bortoletto or Lawson or Colapinto. Yeah, they're all about, I'd say, in the same spot for me. I'd say maybe, I guess it depends on your options here. Maybe Lawson on this one. I prefer Colapinto, but if you've got that kind of budget, maybe you hold on to that extra million or two, and then you have some final fix options if we're wrong about anything in qualifying. But all three of them, I think, are quite good. The first two have slightly more reliable cars, which is a big part of why Tom is having some deep thoughts in these last few minutes. Any last second questions? Feel free to fire them away. Ooh, okay. Switch from Kimi, Hadjar, Lawson, Lindblad, Mercedes, Ferrari to Kimi, Hamilton, or Leclerc, and the 3-point duds at the bottom. No, I wouldn't do the 3 duds at the bottom because I think you have a pretty good chance. Let's come back to the team calculator here. Look at odds of DNF. Those point duds have a pretty good likelihood of a DNF. And then keep in mind, too, you'd be kicking out Hadjar, who I think on merit can outscore Hamilton and Leclerc by himself without absorbing all of these DNF risks. So I'd keep your first team. Hamilton or Antonelli? Antonelli. Colapinto will be thinking about the World Cup final. Yes, he will. We haven't even talked World Cup and who we want to win tomorrow. As a cranky American, I'm just in to see a good game.
I'm sorry, people are waiting to see my team. I'm deliberating to the last moment here.
This is why he's the man. He's got to get it right, and he will too. Whatever he comes out with is usually more right than wrong. Maxter's team is locked. Mercedes, Red Bull, Lawson, Lindblad, Bortoletto, Hadjar, Antonelli. Yep, just like me. Well, just like I wanted to do. I've got Hulkenberg instead of Bortoletto.
I've posted my team. I've made my mind up.
Let's see. Let's get the drum roll going. He's rolled the transfer and going double Audi.
Don't say it out loud. Don't say it out loud. Okay, it's it's too scary. The two red guys on there. But yeah, made the decision to hold on to Bortoletto rather than making that third transfer to Lawson, although it was free, just because I'm anticipating potential shake-up going into Budapest. Maybe we're looking at McLaren with those upgrades and that. Ferrari could be back on the menu. Red Bull could just be a one-week wonder. So I want to keep that third transfer open. Hajar, although he's looking great for today, he could be moved up to like a Leclerc and move to 4A going to Budapest. So if I restrict myself by using all three of my transfers now, it just limits what I can do so much next week. Bortoletto, famous last words, but he's been finishing races well in recent times. He's not scoring massive points, although he did quite well in Silverstone. So yeah, I'm just kind of a little bit of a dice roll on the Audis. Hopefully they can just finish the race. That's kind of all I want. But yeah, I've moved Lewis back to Kimi. I think it's a pretty straightforward move there. Kimi just looks great for the pole victory, most likely. Again, weird things have happened, strange things do happen, but I think it's looking likely. And this whole game is all about probabilities, isn't it? So yeah, that's my team.
I would have gone with this too. And carrying that third transfer is going to be so powerful to you, because if you have a driver, let's say an unlikely Lindblad DNF or something like that, and you really have to shuffle things all the way around, you've got that flexibility where I'm going to have to stamp on wild card or take 2 straight -10s to get it right. And that gap between you and me is just going to grow more and more. So I like that move. You talked earlier about the 4A potential for next week. Having 3 transfers is going to get you there quite easily. So I like it.
Thanks very much. And I think that brings us up to just the last sort of 3 or 4 minutes, I think, for the deadline. So I'm going to have a quick look at the chat in case there's any last minute panic.
Yeah, a lot of quick questions. Hajar or Lawson, Hajar versus anybody not named Antonelli. Checo, Hulkenberg, and Red Bull. I think there's the rest of the lineup missing somewhere, Joe.
Max or George, someone's asking. I would say Max if I had to pick. I think he's going to get podium. He's always in the shout of driver of the day. Everyone loves Max. I think he's got a big fan base. So yeah, I think Max looks good. George not been super impressive this weekend so far.
Agreed for the same reasons.
God, there's so many questions with multiple.
I know a lot of people at these last minute decisions, just like you and I.
It's all the 3-letter names of drivers. You have to like read through the little line, and the chat's moving, so you can't keep up with what you're trying to read.
Red Bull and Alonso or Perez versus Ferrari, Lawson, and 3 transfers for next week. Very close. I like.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I quite like the Ferrari Lawson pick there
with the 3 transfers. Yeah, because if you need, say, a -10 to get out of that, you're basically, I'd say you're about net even at that point. So, yeah, give me the Ferrari Lawson side. Hulk versus Alonso. I feel much better about Hulk finishing the race and potentially in the points too.
Well, just having a quick scroll through Twitter as well, it looks like after all the craziness of what's happened in the last sort of 24 hours and grid penalties and crashes and all sorts going on, there does seem to be a little mini meta, sort of template team for this week with Red Bull going in there. But there are a few teams I've seen sticking with Ferrari. Be interesting to see what the F1 fancy tools like Global Top 500 comes out with after the deadline and everything. But yeah, it's been an interesting week, but I'm pretty satisfied with my team. What will be, as always. Yeah.
It's going to be a big one. You, me, Terry, all have teams in the global top 500. We got multiple people in the chat. Several of our members have top 500 teams. So lots of big decisions. Hopefully we've gotten it all right. Tom, thank you as always for joining us. This was a huge, huge help to me in the last minute. You've been super, super helpful to the chat too.
No worries. Thanks for thinking of me as the savior to come in at the last minute. Yeah, it's been good fun as always. And again, it kind of helps talking through your decision as to finally making that final decision rather than being kind of sat by myself just on my computer in the peace and quiet. But yeah, it's been good to chat to you. Thank you, Adam.
Glad we could all do this together. And thank you all so very much for joining. good luck this week. We'll be back with an all-new preview for Hungary on Tuesday. So good luck this weekend, and we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.